Good morning, and welcome to Empower Innovation's Tech Talk, BSA Regulatory Reform, the Role of Innovation and the Value of BSA Data. This morning, we're going to hear from Erik from FinCEN for the Bank Secrecy Act regulatory reform efforts, how the reform efforts are supporting responsible industry innovation and developing comprehensive and quantitative analytics on the value of BSA data. This morning, we have Mr. Erik Kiefel, the Acting Office Director for Strategic Policy in the Policy Division of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN. Erik leads FinCEN's Innovation Hours Program and the BSA Value Project, and he also co-leads FinCEN's BSA Regulatory Reform efforts. He has also performed the Executive Secretariat function for the heads of financial intelligence units for the Financial Action Task Force Forum, working with FIU counterparts to help create a groundbreaking multilateral effort to share financial intelligence on foreign terrorist fighters. Before joining FinCEN, Erik was a project leader in the Division of Reserve Bank Operations and Payment Systems with the Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve System, where he provided strategic, operational, and financial guidance and analysis on the Reserve Bank's operations, conducted research on the payment systems, implemented laws and regulations related to the payment system, and helped develop policies to improve the U.S. payment system. Erik has also worked at MasterCard International, taught American government at Pepperdine University, and he teaches financial statement analysis at George Washington University. Erik, welcome. We are so pleased to have you with us this morning.
Thank you so much, LaShawn. That's a wonderful welcome, and I'm so pleased to be here today to speak to everyone, and I very much appreciate the invitation from Lab CFTC and our partners in innovation at the CFTC. What I want to share a little bit today about is, as LaShawn mentioned, FinCEN, our Bank Secrecy Act, and some initial thoughts and insights from our innovation work and regulatory reform work, as well as the looking at the value of BSA reporting. And I believe the presentation will be coming up very shortly, so that everyone can follow along. But I'll go ahead and get started a little bit and explain a little bit about the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network and our mission that we have. Our mission is to support and address the concern with illicit financial activity, and to be able to move forward on the promotion of national security through the collection, analysis, and dissemination of financial intelligence and the strategic use of those financial authorities. And what I'm going to walk through today, thank you very much, see it up there now, is about FinCEN and the BSA, that value of BSA reporting, and responsible innovation, among other things, as well as some of the ways we do operational innovation ourselves. So that brief introduction, I was hitting our mission previously. You can see there, we are both domestically and internationally focused, and we use all of our authorities to essentially keep us all safe here at home, or help others keep the U.S. and our families safe, as well as our financial system. Now, the Bank Secrecy Act is the nation's first and most significant anti-money laundering legislation. It's actually a series of acts, and it celebrated its 50th birthday just last month. It is an extremely potent set of tools to prevent the illicit use of the U.S. financial system, as well as attack and deter the misuse of financial systems broadly across the globe. What I'm going to turn to next is a little bit about BSA value reporting. Now, as part of the BSA requirements, we have established certain programmatic requirements, record-keeping requirements, as well as reporting requirements on a broad range of entities. In fact, it's really over 16 different sectors. And it is that reporting by the institutions that I want to spend a little bit of time on. So as I noted, it's been 50 years since the original statutory authority that has become the Bank Secrecy Act has been in place. And the reporting that has come through that, whether it's about suspicious activity, whether it's about transactions in currency or monetary instruments, or other types of reporting or license or registrations, it's all been crucial to government investigations and both public and private sector efforts to protect U.S. national security and the financial system. Now, that being said, we're still working through and improving the way that we use this information effectively and efficiently. And we want to maximize its appropriate and secure use and publicly acknowledge its value. Just to give you a sense of the broad range of institutions that have BSA requirements, as I mentioned, there's around 16 sectors. When you work that all out, that's around 400,000 different entities that have obligations under the Bank Secrecy Act. And these entities collectively cover approximately $33 trillion in financial services. That includes assets under control as well as transactions. In terms of the reporting that we receive, we do collect quite a large number of reports every year, the largest being the currency transaction report, which is a report of transactions exceeding $10,000 in currency. Suspicious activity reports, one of the most important, if not the most important, type of reporting we receive, where institutions are providing to us, and then we disseminate to law enforcement and other appropriate government officials information about transactions that are potentially problematic. And then there is a wide range of other requirements, ranging from reports on taxpayer-held accounts in foreign jurisdictions or various other currency-related reporting. Now, all of this information that is coming in on a daily basis, more than 55,000 reports are received every single day to FinCEN from 150,000 plus entities that are filing, is made available not only to FinCEN analysts and FinCEN staff, but also to an extremely broad array of federal, state, and local authorities. More than 13,000 individual users are using this data every single day, everywhere from the New York Police Department to the FBI to the Office of Foreign Asset Control within Treasury. And we protect this information and ensure its appropriate and confidential use through very strict memorandums of understanding with each of those organizations. That value of BSA reporting is particularly key for the Treasury Department. So thinking about how we at FinCEN, how our colleagues at the Office of Foreign Asset Control, and other areas of the Treasury that make use of BSA reporting. We use it for analysis and typologies. We use it for international activities. And we also, as mentioned, it helps support the identification of potential sanctions evaders and helping to build those out for sanctions packages. Before I go further, I just want to highlight a little bit more about the use of the information by all of the different users across the federal, state, and local area. Those 13,000 plus users, every year, they're identifying more than 18 million BSA reporting items that are relevant to their investigations, to their analyses, to building sanctions packages, what have you. Now, about 60% of those are the CTRs, as I mentioned. The other 40% are the SARs, and the other reporting that I highlighted. And law enforcement in particular is using this information in a variety of ways. They're using it for tactical purposes, to initiate or expand investigations, to conduct outreach and analysis, and to work with foreign partners on cross-border cases. And they're using it strategically. They're identifying new trends and typologies, allocating and budgeting resources so that they can focus on those dawning threats coming up over the horizon. And they're using it to help coordinate with each other to make sure the investigations work effectively. Regulators are also using this information, ranging from insider abuse to other activities. And for FinCEN itself, we are using this throughout what we call our FinCEN intelligence cycle. So through that collection, through that processing and exploitation of the data, analysis, dissemination, and ultimately using it to help plan and direct future work. Now, what we have been doing, and LaShawn mentioned this a little bit, is we've been working to do a first-of-its-kind initiative to quantify and really map out that value that I've been talking about. As you can see, the project has a number of goals, many of which we've tried to do in the past and not been able to do as successfully. While I look forward to being able to talk to you all about the results of the project, we still have a little bit of time to wait. So I hope that we'll be able to share those full results very, very soon. And now I want to turn a little bit to how FinCEN is using innovation internally to do its job, and then get into how the work that we're doing at FinCEN and with a number of our regulatory partners at the federal level to enhance innovation and ensure that the public and the private sector are embracing it in a responsible manner, particularly in the area of dealing with money laundering and terrorist financing, as well as proliferation financing. So, as I mentioned, those 55,000 new filings every day. How do we manage all of that? So at a beginning point, we do some basic business rule analysis. We're identifying key terms or entities and typologies and bringing those in to our analysts to fully go through and understand and get to the true nuggets of details and value that is in that reporting. I'll just note that one of the key uses, and LaShawn mentioned this earlier, that we made use of SARs in particular and these business rules was to identify potential foreign terrorist fighters. So at the height of the conflict in Syria and Iraq, we were identifying over 900 matches per month of potential ISIL-related activity or potential terrorist fighters. And the key here was to be able to identify them, work with our partners abroad, make sure those folks were picked up, and certainly did not have a chance to come back to the United States. So this was a key use and an operational way of using that data. More broadly, we have been looking and using the different principles associated with artificial intelligence and machine learning models. I mentioned the rules-based models. We've also been doing anomaly detection models, looking to identify where there's changes in cash flow or filings, and figure out what those patterns are, both in terms of the typologies as well as in terms of compliance. We've been doing modeling on trend identification, and the idea here is to enhance our use of those suspicious activity reports for trend identification and building out typologies. Recommendation models are something that we're using, particularly in the sense of being able to identify things that are consistent with an established pattern and can be recommended to the analyst for assessing whether it's related or might be a new network or a new set of facilitators following similar efforts. We are also looking at building relationship and network models. Those are progressing in a number of ways to establish the relationships among actors and to really build out the networks that we're seeing. And finally, we are beginning to work on predictive models, although that's still in the early stages. We've also been innovative when it comes to regulation. So we were one of the first regulators in the entire globe to bring in convertible virtual currency and the exchangers and administrators to a regulatory framework. We brought them under in 2013 under the existing rules for what we call money services businesses, so that they would have Bank Secrecy Act obligations, including the reporting. And we've continued to innovate in this area, providing most recently in May additional guidance and clarification as to how these rules apply to certain business models. We've also innovated in terms of our approach to enforcing that regulatory compliance. And this example, just in October, of the $60 million penalty that we assessed against Larry Dean Arman for operating unregistered money services businesses, is just an example of how we're applying our authorities in that area in an innovative fashion. Another area where we've worked to be more innovative is in our operational response to cybercrime, and particularly something called business email compromise. Through the relationships we have with financial intelligence units around the globe and their relationships with their law enforcement, their banks, and on our side with partners like FBI, Secret Service, and the financial institutions, we're able to identify when some corporate client has been compromised and funds have been sent overseas, and work with those overseas partners to bring that money back. Since 2014, we've brought back $1 billion in monies that were otherwise had been lost from this partnership. It's been extremely successful. And now I want to turn briefly to how we're supporting responsible AML CFT innovation. FinCEN and the banking agencies have been improving the USA AML framework based on 4 key principles over the last several years. You'll note in the blue the ones I want to focus on: the responsible innovation promotion and the effective use of financial intelligence, as well as demonstrating its value. Now, we've been doing this for a couple of years now, and we've already had some major accomplishments. We've been able to issue a number of joint statements. Most importantly, for the purposes of this talk, is the one in December 2018, where we jointly noted the importance of innovation in the private sector and our support both from the headquarters to the examiners in being able to have the institutions try things out and fail if they do, but succeed if they can in finding new ways of doing their work and doing so more efficiently. We've also addressed a number of other areas related to sharing of resources, particularly for small institutions, and the approaches we take to examining, as well as when we take enforcement actions for non-compliance. This partnership has been an extremely successful one and involved the key principles from all the different agencies. More recently, we've taken the step of innovation even further in the regulatory area, and that is to focus on looking for effective AML CFT programs. And we just issued an ANPRM a couple of months ago. It just closed yesterday, where we're looking to get comments and feed into a potential new programmatic requirement that focuses on the effectiveness of the institution's programs, as well as potentially establishing priorities that they can focus their efforts on so that we all are using our resources more effectively. Now, turning back to innovation, that joint statement was key for so much we're doing, and it's behind so much of our innovation initiative here at FinCEN. We use our unique authorities, as highlighted in that statement, to provide exceptive relief. So if there's a regulation that is preventing innovation, and there isn't really a chance for institutions to try things out, they can come to us and ask for exceptive relief from that regulation for a period of time. But perhaps the most successful element of this has been our working with industry through our innovation hours. Over the past year and a half, we've held over 15 of these monthly events. Short break as the pandemic hit early in the spring, but virtually throughout ever since, meeting with over 43 firms from across the country. We were even able to hold a regional event in New York with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currencies Innovation Office. And what has this done for us? Well, it's increased our interactions and understanding of the two new technologies and the firms that are providing it, something that's essential for us to know how we can better mitigate the risks, as well as what those new challenges will be in the future. We've also been able to support the regulatory reform effort that I talked about by identifying new threats, figuring out how to mitigate them, supporting policy development, and otherwise enhancing our enforcement capabilities. Some of the other takeaways from these efforts have included important insight into the impediment to financial services innovation. So in the area of digital identity, because we've been listening to the solution providers in these discussions, as opposed to the financial institutions they sell to, you get a slightly different view on things. And one of the things those providers have highlighted to us that they're not hearing that legal and regulatory barriers are really the key behind the slowness of adoption of digital identity. It's really about trust. It's really about having the right risk assessment and risk approach within the institution, as well as the liability aspects of it. On confidential information sharing, we've been able to learn a number of different ways that there can be privacy-enhanced technology applied to data sharing. But again, one of those key challenges is just trust, getting people to trust the technology, trust each other to share that information. And then we've also been able to look at how we can facilitate innovation because of certain gaps. One of the things that keeps coming up is the lack of anonymized data for training of AI and machine learning capabilities. Also being able to find partners in the virtual currency space, and being able to have the kind of interagency coordination that we want to have throughout the federal government, as well as with states. So this brings me to some of the final opportunities that we're pursuing here at FinCEN. One of those problems is how we can be a better incubator. So part of the solution to that is continuing to coordinate with our public sector offices of innovation, like Lab CFTC. Another is that information sharing and how to address it. So we are looking to apply the insight we're learning to figure out how best to protect personally identifiable information through 314B, which is a part of the USA Patriot Act authorities for information sharing, as well as other aspects. When it comes to customer identification, we are trying to understand and address how the current rules may need to evolve or adapt to the new technologies and capabilities, and what the possibilities may be in the future for meeting those kinds of requirements in the digital world. And finally, fully understanding the innovations and their implications. It's about bringing everything internally so that all of our folks are educated, as well as sharing the lessons that we are receiving more broadly, like I am today here with you all. So with that, I want to thank you very much for being able to present a little slice of what we're doing at FinCEN around the Bank Secrecy Act, the BSA Reporting, and innovation. LaShawn, thank you very much again, and I look forward to any questions.
Well, thank you again, Erik. I greatly appreciate your time. It's really great to see that so many of our regulatory innovation partners are, we're working to have common goals. For example, the FinCEN Innovation Hours, how you all are working closely with the Office of the Comptroller of Currency. We happen to have Beth Knickerbocker on at our last event for our regulatory CIOs, our Chief Innovation Officers. So it's great to hear that, we're continuing to stay connected and work together even through, a time like this to continue to push innovation and, keep our regulatory efforts moving forward. So I do have a few questions. So in the number of the BSA reports that you had referenced in 2019, has FinCEN observed any increase or decrease annually, or anything that's tied to the amendments that have come out after the BSA?
Yeah, so what we've been seeing year over year is a continual growth, particularly of suspicious activity reports. So over the last several years, it's been growing in a volume of about 6 to 7% a year. And actually, one of the wonderful things that we do is we actually provide this kind of general anonymized information and data on our website. So there's something called SAR stats, and anyone can go to that on our website and pull up information about the number, the geographic location, the type of suspicious activity that these reports are associated with. And I know it's very useful because I've heard people are using it to create products that they're selling to other people. So it's really a beneficial thing for industry, for benchmarking, as well as others. One thing I'll highlight here is that with the COVID situation, that has been a particular area of growth and importance for us. Just from the very beginning in the February-April timeframe to about middle of September, there were 91,000 SARs filed related to COVID-19 fraud and other activity. And obviously that's increased over the last couple of months as well. And all the different misuses of the government programs to support people during this time. So that's been a core focus for us, both in terms of issuing advisories and working with the institutions that may be affected with their ability to actually file the reports.
Good to hear. Good to hear. You know, again, it's really, really great to see that, you know, even despite the pandemic, that our offices are still able to kind of move forward, and having the space and the ability to work with each other to, as you mentioned in your presentation, to adapt, being more agile in our approach in working with, working with each other and working with the public. One of the other questions that we have relates to the IA and ML models. So can you share any information for how instrumental has the existing FinCEN intelligence cycle, has it been instrumental in refining or validating the models to strengthen the BSA reporting or any of your other regulatory efforts?
Sure. So there's a couple of things I can hit on there. So internally, as we're applying these principles and applying these tools on an increasing basis, we're getting better and better at refining them. But the key, as with anything, and anyone who works in the AI and machine learning space will tell you, it's about the teacher. It is about that feedback loop. And our analysts are key. They are the ones who are going through, looking at what comes out of whether it's the business rules or the other ways we're applying, and giving it a true sensitivity test, and providing feedback to the development of those models further, so that we can be more precise and refine their capabilities to bring us more of what we want from the reporting, and be able to send it out in a more targeted fashion to our partners. The other piece of this is ensuring that the institutions and the private sector is able to have the kinds of support and capabilities to enhance their own use of these technologies. And that's the key point behind that innovation statement that I mentioned. And we are looking forward to working with institutions over time as they want to show us and exhibit for us how they are using these technologies to more effectively identify suspicious activity and report it to us.
Wonderful. Well, Erik, again, thank you so much for your time, and I can assure you that Lab CFTC and all of our regulatory partners are looking forward to continuing our work with FinCEN and pushing forward the work that we have to do. So again, thank you again for your time. It was an absolutely wonderful presentation. We thank you again for having us. Thank you again for joining us.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So everyone, please stay tuned. We are going to now move on to our panel discussion. I will pass it over to my colleague, Bianca Gomez, for the meeting, the digital demand through regulation. Thank you, and stay connected.